Right, friends, welcome back to Learning Space. This is the most important high impact module. Quick wrap up. This will have very high impact on your preliminary examination. Several concepts will be made clear, and 16 modules we are going to produce, and they will be available both in Learning Space Digital and YouTube. Friends, they are from the dynamic aspects. They spread across national, international, economy, S&T, ecology, policies and programs. And they will be highly beneficial for the students, whoever are preparing Prelims 2020. Right, friends? Let us look at national, international aspects. And these 16 modules will be uploaded starting from today and will be completed by 28th September. Please do not forget. They will be available in both Learning Space Digital and YouTube. Friends, let me start with infrastructure projects. When I look at infrastructure projects, please do not forget freight corridors. Dedicated freight corridors are DFCs towards eastern sector, towards western sector. One is starting from Jawaharlal Nehru Port Trust going up to Dadri near Delhi. Second one is from Ludhiana going up to Dankuni in West Bengal. These two dedicated freight corridors are most important. Then Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. Under Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor, 8 industrial nodes are coming up. Out of 8, one industrial node, that is Dholera, that is first coming up in Gujarat. That is important, right? And Gift City, that is in Gandhinagar, Gujarat. Please do not forget. Then if you expand the infrastructure projects, the Eastern Peripheral Expressway, Western Peripheral Expressway, they belongs to Delhi. Please do not forget. Like that, Coastal Economic Zone, CEZ under Sagarmala, first one is coming up in Maharashtra. Then 2 defense industrial corridors in Tamil Nadu and Uttar Pradesh. So friends, these are some of the infrastructure projects which comes to my mind. Let us look at tunnels. Friends, this is Chanani Nastri Tunnel, that is Shyam Prasad Mukherjee Tunnel, that is on Jammu-Srinagar Highway. Second one is Atal Tunnel or Rohtang Tunnel. Friends, it is going to be inaugurated shortly. Longest about 3000 meters in the world. It connects Manali Leh. That means it is situated in Himachal Pradesh and it connects to Ladakh region. And it is in eastern Pir Panjal range. Friends, let me recollect Sela Tunnel, that is in Arunachal Pradesh, coming up to give all-weather connectivity to Tawang. Tawang is one of the strategic places in our country. Then Jojila Pass Tunnel, this is on Srinagar-Leh highway. It is situated in Ladakh and it is going to come up on this highway. Then Shinkunla Pass Tunnel. It is recently proposed. Please do not forget. Friends, bridges. Bogibeel Bridge. That was inaugurated last year. Bogibeel is basically the road cum rail bridge situated on river Brahmaputra in Assam. Second one is this Bhupen Hazarika Bridge or Thola Sadia Bridge. Thola Sadia Bridge is situated on Lohit River. Please do not forget, in Assam. So friends, these are some of the important tunnels, bridges, infrastructure projects. Friends, Special Frontier Force. This was established in 1962 and it is known as Establishment 22 initially. This is towards high altitude warfare. Another important aspect about Sri Lanka, this Amendment 13th, Amendment 19th, they are into the news. 13th amendment is with regard to power sharing with the provincial councils. Then friends, KRA Canal Project. Now Thailand announced the dropping of KRA Canal Project. KRA Canal Project is supposed to be developed by China. Now Thailand said it is going to drop it. And the next important aspect is this Kapu Port. Then of course Hambantota Port, Gwadar Port, these are being developed by China. Please do not forget. And when I look at China, 2-3 important aspects comes to my mind. The dispute Senkaku Islands or Diaoyu Islands. That is the dispute between China and Japan. They are situated in East China Sea. And when you look at the South China Sea, Paracel Islands, Scarborough Reef. At the same time, another important aspect is along with Paracel Islands, the Spratly Islands. Friends, these are important because these are disputed between China and other countries. Right, friends? Then GII, it was released recently, Global Innovation Index, joint initiative of WIPO. This Cornell University INSEAD, India's rank increased during the past 5-6 years from 81 to 48. India is within Global 50 now as far as ease of doing business index is concerned, which is released by the World Bank. Please don't forget, India's rank is 63 and temporarily it is being paused because some data irregularities pertaining to other countries are noticed. Then another important aspect which is not mentioned in this slide, I would like to tell you about import duties. Very important from your preliminary perspective. First one is solar panels. On solar panels and modules, there is no basic customs duty. Very important. And safeguard duty is being imposed. Please listen carefully. There is no basic customs duty on solar panels and modules. You may have a doubt why. Because India is a signatory to Information Technology Agreement 1 of 1990s. This is the first one I would like to tell you. Second is, several countries approached WTO because of India's imposition of import duties on some mobile components and other goods. Friends, what India said is, India signed ITA 1. India has not signed ITA 2. When India signed ITA 1, at that point of time, these high-end goods, they were not there. India has not visualized these high-end goods. Now India justifies imposition of import duties on certain components of high-end electronics. This matter is now with WTO. So friends, the second point must be clear to you. India imposes import duties on certain electronic components which are objected at the WTO by some countries. Third important aspect, please don't forget, India imposes import duties to the extent of around 50-60% or so on dairy products. Friends, one of the reasons why India not joined RCEP is because when India joined RCEP, then cheap products from countries like New Zealand, Australia may flood into the country. Because of that reason, India has not joined RCEP. That is one of the reasons. So from your examination perspective, please don't forget, one is with regard to the solar modules, there is no basic customs duty. Second, on certain high-end electronic components, India imposes customs duty that is objected at WTO. Third important aspect is India imposes the customs duties on dairy products. Fourth important aspect is India imposes customs duties on vegetable oil. It is around 40% or so. So friends, these four are most important when you look at examination perspective. I hope things are clear. And now let us look at this rural households income from farm sources. I am talking about rural India. In rural India, in 1970s, 3/4 of a rural household's income is from the farm sources. Now it is almost 1/3 or so. This is the major change. Friends, after the economic reforms, 3-4 aspects I would like to tell you. First one is with regard to manufacturing sector contribution to GDP. It is almost stagnant at around 16-17%. Please do not forget. Second is, that means since 1991, India is almost net exporter as far as agri produce is concerned. Friends, the most important aspect is the agri surplus. Very important. Agri trade surplus that is reducing in recent years. Please do not forget. India is having the trade surplus as far as agricultural products are concerned, but that agricultural trade surplus is declining in recent times. Third important aspect is, after the economic liberalization since 1990s, one prominent aspect is the government expenditure, or you can say public expenditure in agriculture, that is on decline. These 3-4 changes, please do not forget. Look at the next one. GST compensation. GST compensation that is inbuilt into the Act. Friends, how GST was brought? GST was brought through Constitutional 101st Amendment. There is a GST Compensation Act. Based on that Act, the center has to disperse the shortfall till 2022 March 31st. Now the center is invoking Act of God, that is also known as Doctrine of Force Majeure. But some experts say it is not a commercial deal, so therefore center cannot invoke Act of God. Friends, from your examination perspective, please don't forget 3-4 important aspects I would like to tell you. The base year for calculating GST compensation due, that is 2015-16. That is the first point. Second point is 14% every year increase is in fact calculated. That is the second point. 2015-16 is the base year. Every year 14% plus. If some shortfall is there, that is to be compensated by the center, that is as per GST Compensation Act. And how the center will get money? Center will get money by imposing this cess on certain goods like cars, cigarettes, like that. Right? So in 2017-18, center was very happy because GST cess collected was higher than compensation. In 2018-19 also, center was happy because GST cess collected was higher than compensation to be paid. But third year it was reverse. Cess collected was lesser than compensation to be paid. So friends, this is the story for the past 3 years. Please do not forget. Right? And another important aspect is, this is as per GST Compensation Act. Now center is invoking Act of God. From your examination perspective, GST compensation is very, very important. Center cannot pay from its Consolidated Fund of India. It has to look for alternate mechanisms. Right? And this is supposed to be paid from the cess collected on goods like cars as well as goods like cigarettes. Please don't forget. Then friends, Business Reform Action Plan 2019. What is this? This is nothing but ease of doing business for the states. Please don't forget. It is the joint initiative of DPIIT and the World Bank, and for 2019, Andhra Pradesh stopped. There are 80 aspects as far as reforms are concerned. Friends, Operation Twist. And I would like to tell you the difference between open market operations and Operation Twist. What is open market operation? Open market operation means to adjust liquidity, the Reserve Bank of India looks at purchasing the bonds, selling the bonds. That is to adjust liquidity, right? That is open market operation. Normally, at a time, it either purchases the bonds to infuse liquidity or sells the bonds to suck the liquidity. But when both are done simultaneously, that is Operation Twist. When the yield curve is steep, steep means yield for long-term bonds is very high in comparison to yield for short-term bonds. Under those circumstances, it purchases long-term bonds. It sells short-term bonds. Simultaneously it does. That is Operation Twist. RBI is resorting to in recent times. That is important from your prelims perspective. Then this inverted yield curve. Right? We first talked about steep yield curve. This is a steep yield curve. That happens when there are inflationary expectations in future, and here when the Reserve Bank of India resorting to this simultaneous purchase and selling of these securities, then that steepness will go away, right? That is the meaning of this operation twist. That means for the long-term bonds, yields will come down. When yields come down for the long-term bonds, government borrowings, long-term borrowings, they become easier, right? That is the precise reason why Operation Twist is conducted by RBI. Operation Twist is purchasing the long-term bonds, selling the short-term bonds. I hope you got clarity. Then inverted yield curve. That means yields for short-term are higher than the yields for long-term. Normally, yields for long-term are higher than yields for short-term. The first one what we have discussed is, if it is steep, then Operation Twist. It should be normal like this. But sometimes what happens? It becomes reverse. That is inverted yield curve. Inverted yield curve, some economists say it is probable indication of recession. Please don't forget. I hope you got clarity. The difference between steep yield curve and inverted yield curve. Then RBI transfers. RBI transfers every year its surplus to the government because government promoted it, right? And another important aspect is it is non-tax revenue to the government. Then Reserve Bank of India, if you see, it is aligning its accounting year with the financial year. That means in 2021, its accounting year will be just 9 months. For 21-22, its accounting year will completely align with the financial year of the country, right? This is the important aspect, don't forget. Then this RBI transfers. This is non-tax revenue to the center. In fact, last year the transfers were much higher and this year transfers reduced. Friends, when there is no credit appetite, when the demand for credit is less, then what happens? When the demand is less for the credit, then the banks stores the money, or you can say banks deposits the money with the Reserve Bank of India under the reverse repo. So because of that, RBI's expenditure will increase, right? Then RBI reserves. Last year committees with regard to RBI reserves that finally settled, and as per that committee, RBI reserves, please don't forget, two important ones. One is contingency fund. That should be kept 5.5% minimum. Then next one is revaluation reserves. Because of gold and foreign currency, revaluation reserves, whether they increase, whether they decrease, it doesn't matter. That means that cannot be transferred to the government. This particular aspect, contingency fund, that is to be kept within the range of 5.5% to 6.5%. Now, Reserve Bank of India kept contingency fund at 5.5% and transferred the balance. I hope you got clarity. Payments banks, it is not a successful experiment because of the inbuilt flaw. What is the flaw? It has to deposit 75% of the money in the government securities. It cannot lend. It cannot issue credit cards. It has got a faulty business model. Because of that, payment banks is a failure, you can say. Friends, now the RBI is nudging the payment banks to convert to the small finance banks, right? And small finance banks, please don't forget, previously the capital requirement is rupees 100 crore. Now it is increased to rupees 200 crore. When you look at small finance banks, please do not forget two important things. One is 75% of the money in the priority sector lending. That is the first condition. Second condition is 50% of the loans up to 25 lakh. Right? These two conditions are to be met. Another important thing is urban and multi-state cooperative banks. They came under RBI supervision. Very, very important. To tighten the screws, these are brought under RBI supervision. Then record foreign exchange reserves. In recent times, imports reduced. That is one reason. Second reason is the capital flows into the country. That is the second reason. Third reason is India has maintaining certain gold reserves. That means around 600 tons or so. Now gold price increased. That is another reason. So friends, because of various reasons, now record foreign exchange reserves are there with the country. And please do not forget, we have sufficient import cover. The import cover mandatory is for 10 months. We have sufficient import cover, please don't forget. Then one anomaly we are seeing in recent times is credit growth is less than deposit growth in the banks. Normally, credit growth is higher than the deposit growth. But in recent times, credit growth is less than the deposit growth in the banks. Friends, equalization levy, right? Equalization levy is nothing but the levy on the advertisements when the firms are non-resident. When the firms are non-resident, then equalization levy is levied, and this is a direct tax, please don't forget. And two conditions are to be met. Please do not forget, one, it is direct tax. Second is, it is meant for businesses only, not for individuals. It is a 6%, but the condition is per annum payment to the service provider. In fact, the service provider must be based abroad. Under those circumstances, here 1 lakh rupees per annum the consideration must increase. Under those circumstances, 6% is to be paid. So friends, it is direct tax. It is for businesses only, 6%. That is when non-resident service provider receives rupees 1 lakh per annum. Then look at ecology and environment. One thing I would like to tell you about Land Degradation Atlas 2016. ISRO in fact has revealed this Land Degradation Atlas. As per this atlas, in the country, around 1/3 of the land, or you can say around 37% of the land is suffering from degradation. Very, very important. That means 121 million hectares is suffering from degradation, and most important one is, as far as degradation of the soil is concerned in our country, 68% is due to water erosion, most important one. There are other reasons also there, like waterlogging, salinization, acidity, all those things. But the major component is this water erosion. Because of water erosion, 68% of the land is suffering degradation in our country, and out of the total land, 37% is degraded as per Land Degradation Atlas released by ISRO. Friends, BORN challenge, that is by IUCN and Government of Germany. Subsequently, it was ratified through New York Declaration on Forest. As per New York Declaration on Forest, which is non-binding and voluntary, please do not forget, this New York Declaration on Forest is non-binding and voluntary, and the commitment across the world is 350 million hectares of degraded and deforested lands by 2030. What is India's commitment? India's commitment is 26 million hectares. That means our total degraded land is 121 million hectares, and now we committed 26 million hectares. Please do not forget. Then Pak Bay and Gulf of Mannar. Please do not forget, when people are talking about seagrass beds, the prominent area is this Pak Bay and Gulf of Mannar of the Tamil Nadu coast. Don't forget. Why are we discussing about it? We are discussing about it because of the simple reason, there are community managed conservation strategies funded by GIZ of Germany, and it is supported by IUCN. Please do not forget. Seagrass, Gulf of Mannar, or you can say Pak Bay, and this is off the Tamil Nadu coast. For its conservation, funding is by GIZ Germany and IUCN supported project. Friends, this green agriculture project, it is in different landscapes. How to do sustainable agriculture in different landscapes. That's why 5 areas are selected. It is funded by Global Environment Facility. At the same time, it is the project of FAO and India's Ministry of Agriculture. What are the 5 landscapes? Please do not forget. One is Chambal landscape, then Dampa landscape in Mizoram, don't forget. At the same time, don't forget Dampa Tiger Reserve. That is in Mizoram, which has no tigers, right? Then Similipal. This is the landscape in Odisha. Then Desert National Park in Rajasthan. Then Corbett Rajaji landscape. This is selected in Uttarakhand. Friends, for green agriculture project, that means under different landscapes, how to do sustainable agriculture. That is the meaning of green agriculture project. Friends, many of you may not aware about this particular project. This is Sustainable Agriscapes for the Future project. Very important. Sustainable Agriscapes for the Future project. This is about agriculture and conservation. This is the joint initiative of IUCN and ITC Limited. And it is being executed in Munger, Khod and Bhavani basins. Right friends, from your preliminary perspective, this may be most important green agriculture project. Then of course, degradation of land. These points are most important. And let us look at Kopili Hydroelectric project. Sometime back, Kopili Hydroelectric project, which is situated in Assam, that was into the news because of acidic water from Jaintia Hills. Friends, that is because of unscientific coal mine. Unscientific coal mining is the normal practice in Jaintia Hills of Meghalaya, and from that lot of this toxic metals and iron hydroxide that came. That's why this Kopili Hydroelectric project that was into the news, that is situated in Assam. Another important aspect, please don't forget Forest Rights Act 2006. This is into the news because several rights, both community as well as individual rights, they were rejected. And in this context, the matter went to the Supreme Court. Please do not forget how the rights are granted. For granting the rights, there is a 3-level mechanism. One is Gram Sabha, Subdivisional Level Committee, Divisional Level Committee. Friends, please don't forget Divisional Level Committee is the final authority to grant pattas. As per the news reports, out of around 42 lakh applicants, around 17 lakhs or so are rejected as per the recent available news reports. Those figures are not that important, but students must have clarity with regard to what is the procedure. The procedure is Gram Sabha constitutes FRC along with the forest officials. They survey the land, and after that Gram Sabha will process, and FRC, please don't forget, FRC that has got certain provisions like 1/3 must be women, 2/3 must belong to scheduled tribes. All these things are very, very important. If somebody is not happy with the district level committee, suppose if the district level committee rejecting it, then they can approach court, right? Then friends, ODF plus, that is sustainable usage of toilets, after becoming 100% open defecation free. Now how to continue using the toilets, that is sustainable usage, that is ODF plus. What is ODF plus plus? ODF plus plus, please do not forget, that pertains to the solid and liquid management. That means waste management. How to ensure 100% waste management. That is the basic idea of ODF plus plus. Then friends, twin pit toilets. Twin pit toilets, it is evolved with the idea of converting human waste into manure, or you can say this compost that can be straight away used in the field, right? Then if you look further, this critical wildlife habitat, this is the most important one because it is into the news in recent times. Critical wildlife habitat, that is part of this Forest Rights Act. That means Forest Rights Act 2006 permits it. In our country, there is no critical wildlife habitat declared till now. And the first one is proposed in Melghat Wildlife Sanctuary. This is in Maharashtra. Friends, Melghat Wildlife Sanctuary, this is in Maharashtra. And Tadoba Andhari, that is also in Maharashtra. These are quite often into the news. Tadoba Andhari, because of one coal mine which is situated in eco-sensitive zone of Tadoba Andhari, that is Bandeir mine, that is dropped. Because of that, and also because of the construction of some roads, Tadoba Andhari, that is into the news, that is in Maharashtra. And similarly, this Melghat Wildlife Sanctuary, this is also in Maharashtra. And first CWH, that is proposed in Melghat, but it has not gone ahead. The matter is now with the court, and not a single declaration of CWH, critical wildlife habitat, that can be declared as per Forest Rights Act 2006. And areas in national parks and sanctuaries. Friends, the idea is, if more conservation effort is required, areas in national parks and sanctuaries, they can be declared inviolate. That means the people residing in that area, they have to be rehabilitated somewhere, and the resettlement package, that should have the informed consent of Gram Sabha. Very, very important, right? And first of all, the FRA rights are to be given to these people. In fact, there are 6 conditions to go ahead with the CWH. One of the conditions is the rights, individual and community rights, they have to be granted to the people. After that only, people should think about talking about CWH. There must be scientific and objective criteria and the informed consent of Gram Sabha as far as resettlement is concerned. Then this not a single CWH till now. And who will take the final decision of CWH? CWH final decision can be approved only by the Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife. All of you are familiar, the Standing Committee of the National Board for Wildlife, that is headed by the Union Environment Minister, don't forget. Friends, Dhamra Port, if you go 15 kilometers towards the south, you will get Gahirmata Beach. Friends, there are several environmental protections were taken when Dhamra Port is constructed. Dhamra Port, please don't forget, it is in Odisha, and around 15 kilometers towards the south, you will reach Gahirmata Beach, one of the nesting sites of olive ridley turtles. And this Gahirmata Beach, that separates Gahirmata Marine Sanctuary from Bhitarkanika National Park. So friends, please do not forget, Bhitarkanika National Park, that is situated in the river system of Baitarani and Brahmani, please don't forget. And this area is most important from environmental perspective as far as Odisha is concerned. That is Gahirmata Beach, then Gahirmata Marine Sanctuary, then Bhitarkanika National Park, then Leaders for Nature. Many of you may not have heard about this project. That means how to ensure the environmental practices or how to incorporate natural capital in their core businesses. That means it is towards greening of the corporates. That means the companies, how to ensure more natural capital in their business environment, or you can say how the companies will become more greening. That is Leaders for Nature project, and it is initiated in Netherlands by IUCN, and in India also it is in progress. And ITC Center of Excellence and Sustainable Development, Wildlife Trust of India, CII, they are associated with IUCN for the establishment of this Leaders for Nature project, that is LFN project, please don't forget. Next important aspect is Bagjan blowout. Because of the blowout in the Bagjan oil well, then 2 entities were affected. One is Dibru-Saikhowa National Park, right? And it is surrounded by 3 rivers, don't forget, Brahmaputra, Dibru and Lohit. And in this particular area, Maguri Motapang wetland, that is also affected, don't forget. Then friends, Dahin Patkai Wildlife Sanctuary. This is also in the news. This is in Assam, don't forget. This Bagjan blowout, that means Dibru-Saikhowa National Park. This Dehing Patkai Wildlife Sanctuary, these are in Assam because of various reasons. These are into the news. And this Dehing Patkai Wildlife Sanctuary, this is prominent as far as rainforest is concerned, and it is known as Amazon of the East. It is into the news because of coal mining, and the second is because of the proposal to upgrade to national park. So friends, from your exam perspective, this Maguri Motapang wetland, which was affected because of Bagjan blowout, then Dibru Saikova National Park, then Dehing Patkai Wildlife Sanctuary, these are very, very important. Look at some science and technology. First one is BOD, right? This is when it is 3 milligrams per liter and above. It is considered polluted. We always talk about Ganga, but if you look at these reaches, they are highly polluted. One is Ghaggar River in Haryana. In certain stretch, the pollution is up to 482 milligrams per liter. BOD, instead of less than 3, it is 482 milligrams per liter. Then Bhadra in Gujarat. Then Mithi in Maharashtra, which flows through Mumbai city. This has got the BOD of 250. Friends, reverse osmosis. NGT ordered when the total dissolved solids are less than 500 milligrams per liter, then there is no need for establishing reverse osmosis machines. This is the order of NGT. Friends, NGT ordered when the total dissolved solids in our drinking water, when they are less than 500 milligrams per liter, then there is no need for reverse osmosis. Friends, in this context, 3-4 important points I would like to tell you. First is this reverse osmosis that wastes lot of water. That's why NGT said, why do you waste so much water? Second is when these TDS, total dissolved solids, when they are less than 500 milligrams per liter, there is no need for this reverse osmosis, because reverse osmosis in fact removes most important calcium and magnesium, because calcium and magnesium, they are required for the human body. So important desirable elements, they are being removed. This is the second contention. Third contention is it does not remove suspended impurities. Reverse osmosis that removes dissolved salts. It does not remove the suspended impurities. They can be removed with low cost ultrafiltration. That is the intention of NGT. And the fourth one is it does not remove this contaminants of bacteria and virus. So these 4 reasons are there behind the NGT order. First one is it unnecessarily removes the desired salts, or you can say the desired ones like calcium and magnesium. Second important one is it wastes lot of water. Third important one is it does not remove suspended impurities. It removes only dissolved salts. Fourth important aspect is it does not remove this bacterial and viral contaminants. Friends, for removing these suspended impurities and bacterial and viral components, they can easily be removed by this ultrafiltration and ultraviolet filters. That is cost effective, that costs a little. So because of that, NGT said there is no need for reverse osmosis machines when the total dissolved solids are less than 500 milligrams per liter. Friends, this National Clean Air Program, this is for non-attainment cities. Friends, what is the meaning of non-attainment cities? Non-attainment cities means, as per this NAAQS, National Ambient Air Quality Standards, there are standards prescribed, but all these measurements are not done at several places. So therefore, finally, PM10, PM2.5 are taken. So by taking PM10 and PM2.5 as the base of the year 2017, by 2024, they have to be reduced to the extent of 20%, 30%, or you can say minimum 20%. That is National Clean Air Program. It has no legal backing, very, very important. It is through executive order. It has no legal backing. When you look at the legal backing, only one is there in our country, that is with regard to Delhi air pollution, which is being monitored by the Supreme Court. that is having legal backing, but this NCAP that does not have legal backing. This is the important aspect, don't forget. Then friends, PM10. PM10 mostly released because of road dust as well as, please listen carefully, PM10 is mostly released because of the road dust, construction demolition dust, or you can say construction dust, road dust. They are predominantly behind this PM10. When you look at PM2.5, these are fine particles which enter deep into the system, or you can say respiratory tract. They enter the lungs. And PM2.5, please do not forget diesel engines. Diesel engines, they predominantly, in fact, release PM2.5. Please do not forget. With the switch over to BS6, PM2.5, that will be reduced substantially. And another important aspect is, in the BS6, sulfur component is reduced enormously from around 50 ppm to around 10 ppm. Please do not forget these things. Friends, let me look at how the pollutants affect our body. First is PM2.5. This affects respiratory tract and lung damage, don't forget. Then nitrogen oxides, they cause bronchitis. Then another important aspect, the pollutant which is formed because of nitrogen oxides reacting with volatile organic compounds. Nitrogen oxides, please do not forget, nitrogen oxides are released because of vehicular pollution, because of industrial activity. So friends, because of these things, this nitrogen oxides are released. And nitrogen oxides, when sunlight is there, when it is combining with the volatile organic compounds, please do not forget this nitrogen oxides, when they combine with volatile organic compounds in the presence of sunlight, they form tropospheric ozone. Please do not forget, tropospheric ozone, methane, black carbon, these are categorized under short-lived climate pollutants. Because of the simple reason, they stay in the atmosphere for lesser duration in comparison to carbon dioxide. These are short-lived climate pollutants, but they have very high global warming potential. That is the biggest problem. Because of that precise reason, CCAC was formed, that is Climate and Clean Air Coalition. India became the 65th country to join CCAC, please don't forget. This is about tropospheric ozone, please don't forget. To form tropospheric ozone, please do not forget, in the environment, nitrogen oxides must be there and they should react with volatile organic compounds in the presence of sunlight. That is the ideal situation for forming the tropospheric ozone. Tropospheric ozone, then hydrofluorocarbons, then black carbon, methane, these comes under short-lived climate pollutants. To look at short-lived climate pollutants, because they have very high global warming potential, to look at them, this CCAC was formed. CCAC is Climate and Clean Air Coalition, please don't forget. India joined CCAC. So from your examination perspective, these are very, very important. Then friends, nitrogen oxides, when they react with common organic chemicals, because of that what is formed, nitrosamines and nitroarenes are formed and they lead to DNA mutations and cancers. Then carbon monoxide reduces the amount of oxygen carried by the hemoglobin. So friends, because of carbon monoxide, the amount of oxygen carried, that is affected, or you can say oxygen carrying capacity of the blood is affected. Second is nitrosamines. Nitrosamines are formed because of nitrogen oxides reacting with organic chemicals and they lead to DNA mutation and cancers. And tropospheric ozone, please do not forget. And most of you are familiar with PM2.5 that causes respiratory tract and lung damage. Right friends, we had elaborate discussion today. And this series will continue till 28th September and second module will be presented tomorrow. Have a nice day. Thank you.